Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. I hope you enjoyed your Easter holidays and had lot of eggs. I would love to hear how you celebrated your Easter holidays, so do share your enjoyable moments in the comment section. So let's gear up for another 15 very important questions in this part 7 of our AZ-104 Real Exam Question and Answer exam series. Earlier in this series, I have already covered 55 very important questions spanning in 6 parts that you don't want to miss. And if you did for any reason, then links for all these 6 parts are available in the description box. I strongly recommend watching all these 6 parts because each question is important from the exam point of view. And as always, to help you learn in the offline mode as well, I would like to give you the PDF version of this part 7 PPT if you give me the correct answers for question number 58 and question number 66. Both the answer to these questions are available in this video itself. So watch the video very carefully till the very end. You can now join the Facebook community of the Tech Blackboard at www.facebook.com/thetechblackboard. Now let's begin our part 7 with question number 56. The question says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1 that contains a resource group named RG1. In RG1, you create an internal load balancer named LB1 and a public load balancer named LB2. You need to ensure that an administrator named admin1 can change LB1 and LB2. The solution must follow the principle of least privilege. Which role should you assign to admin1 for each task? To answer, select appropriate option in the answer area. Now here you can see that you are given 2 tasks. The first task is to add backend pool to LB1 and the other task is to add health probe to LB2, which is nothing but load balancer. Now, out of these options given here, you have to choose the most appropriate solution that also complies with the principle of least privilege. And the correct answer for this question is network contributor for RG1, that goes for the first task, and similarly network contributor on RG2 that also goes for the second task. Now let's understand the reasoning behind choosing both of these options, and then I will take you to the Microsoft documentation to understand a little bit more about network contributor. Starting with our backend pool, you need to have network contributor on load balancer and on the virtual machines that will be part of the backend pool. For this reason, network contributor role must be assigned on the resource group level where the load balancer and virtual machines resides. And that's the reason behind choosing network contributor on RG1 or resource group 1. Now coming to the reason behind choosing network contributor on RG2 for the task health probe. So similar to the backend pool, in health probe also, without having access to RG1, no health probe can be added. So please understand that if only the network contributor is on the load balancer, then the user would not be able to access the IP addresses of the member pools. And that's the reason why I have chosen network contributor on the resource group level. Now let's go to the Microsoft site and learn a little bit more about network contributor role. So this is the Microsoft site that talks more about Azure built-in roles. We also touched upon this site in our previous video as well. So if you will scroll down a little, then you will come across a role which is called network contributor. And where is it? I think I left it above. Here it is. So you can read here that network contributor role lets you manage network without having access to them. And that's exactly what our question is also asking. So we need a role, or we need to enable the admin1 with a role that can manage the network. It doesn't necessarily need to access them. And that also fits in the principle of least privilege. So hopefully from the Microsoft documentation, you understood the reason behind choosing network contributor on RG1 and network contributor on RG2 for both these tasks respectively. Coming to question number 57, and it says you are currently using network security groups or NSG to control how your network traffic flows in and out of your virtual network subnets and network interfaces. You want to customize how your NSG works. For all incoming traffic, you need to apply your security rules to both virtual machine and subnet level. Which of the following options will let you accomplish this? Choose two. And your options are delete the default rules, create the allow VNet inbound security rules for all new NSGs, create rules for both NIC and subnets with an allow action, and the last one is add rules with a higher priority than the default rules. Now let's examine all the options one by one. The first one says delete the default rule. So in Azure, you cannot delete the default rules. So this option is already ruled out. Now coming to the second one, which talks about allow VNet inbound security rule, which again is a default rule in Azure. And you cannot create a already default rule. I will show you that in the Microsoft documentation in just a while. So this option is also not correct. Then moving on, we have third options which says create rules for both NIC and subnet. Now this is a correct option because to apply security both on NIC and subnet level, you have to create rules with allow action on both these NIC and subnet level. So this is a correct option. Similarly, we have add rules with high priority than default rule, and that also is a correct option. So our two correct options are option C and option D. Now let's jump to the Microsoft documentation and understand these rules a little bit more. Now this is the Microsoft documentation which talks more about network security groups. I will zoom it a little more so that we can read it in a better way. Now if you will scroll a little, you will reach to a section which calls security rules, and in this one we have a subsection called priority. And if you will read out, it says a number between 100 and 4096. Rules are processed in the priority order with lower number processed before higher number because the lower number have higher priority. And that's the reason I said that you need to create a rule with a high priority number. One more thing I wanted to show is that if you will scroll down a little bit more, here you can see we have allow VNet inbound, which is a default Azure role. So you cannot explicitly create this rule. And that was Microsoft documentation, the reason behind choosing these two options as a correct answer to this question. Reading out our question number 58, it says you create an Azure storage account named storage1. You plan to create a file share named data1. Users need to map a drive to the data file share from home computers that run on Windows 10. Which outbound port should you open between home computers and the data file share? And your options are 80, 443, 445 or 3389. And the correct answer for this question is 445. Now just for your understanding, here I have shared a little more detail on each port. So you can see port 80 is a HTTP based port and this is for web. 443 is also used for the web. However, this is HTTPS, which is a secured version of HTTP protocol. Then we have 445, which is our correct answer as well. And this is the port for SMB protocol to share files. Then we have 3389, which is a remote desktop protocol or RDP. Always keep in mind that whenever the question is asking about file share or it is asking about map a drive, and you always have to select the port 445. Before moving ahead, I just wanted to say that friends, it takes considerable amount of time and effort to find Microsoft documentation to justify each answer and give you an explanation for each question in our exam series. Please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your each like encourages me and ensures that the video is reaching to a greater audience. Do share the videos with everyone having interest in learning Azure Cloud technologies. Your comments and feedbacks give me a chance to understand what you want to see on this channel and help me improve my content. I always make sure to read each of your comments and reply to them. So keep supporting me and I promise to bring the content that helps you grow in your career. Coming to question number 59, and here we have that you have deployed an application named App1 in Azure. App1 is deployed on two Azure virtual machines named VM1 and VM2. You plan to implement an Azure availability set for App 1. The solution must ensure that App 1 is available during planned maintenance of the servers hosting VM1 and VM2. What should you include in the availability set? And your options are single fault domain, single update domain, two fault domains, or two update domains. Now, few important points in the question is that we are talking about planned maintenance. Whenever the question asks about planned maintenance, then you can only focus on update domain and not the fault domain. So that's the point number one that you have to keep in mind. Secondly, here we want that the app want to be available during the planned maintenance of the server hosting VM1 and VM2. Then the at least or the minimum number of update domain we would need is 2. And thus our correct answer is we need at least 2 update domain. Now to just tell you about fault domain as well. So fault domains come into the picture when we talk about unplanned maintenance or other unplanned issues or problems. So fault domain does limit the impact of potential physical hardware or network outages or other reasons like power interruptions or any similar thing. However, in this question, we are talking about planned maintenance and thus it only relates to update domains. Now let's move to the question number 60, and it says that you have Microsoft 360 tenant and an Azure Active Directory tenant named Conteso.com. You plan to grant 3 users named user 1, user 2, user 3 access to a temporary Microsoft SharePoint document library named library 1. You need to create groups for the users. The solution must ensure that the groups are deleted automatically after 180 days. Which 2 groups should you create? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. And the options given are a Microsoft 365 group that uses assigned membership type, or a security group that uses assigned member type, or a Microsoft 365 group that uses dynamic user membership type, or the fourth option is a security group that uses dynamic user membership type, and the last one is a security group that uses dynamic device membership type. And the correct answer for this question is option A and option C, for the simple reason that only Office 365 groups support automatic deletion after 180 days. If you want to read more about Microsoft 365 group expiration policy, then this is the Microsoft documentation page. I will share the link for this page and all the other documentation that I have referred in this video in the description box. Our question number 61 says that triggering a webhook at 5 AM on Monday is an example of which of the following? Is it a metric-based rule or an app insight rule, or is it a time-based rule? And the correct answer for this question is time-based rule, because time-based rules allow scaling based on time patterns. Coming to question number 62, which says that which of the following rule would you apply to the network security group for the network interface attached to web server for the incoming secure traffic? Choose the best possible answer. And your options are an outbound rule allowing traffic on port 80, then the outbound rule allowing traffic on port 443, an inbound rule allowing traffic on port 443, or the last one is an inbound rule allowing traffic on port 80. Important points to note here that we are talking about web server, which means that we are talking about the web traffic. And then the question also says that it's an incoming secure traffic. So whenever we have web traffic, it also means that we are talking about the HTTP or HTTPS. But now that the question says it's a secure traffic, then we can be sure it's a HTTPS protocol. And that's the reason that the correct answer for this question is option C, inbound rule allowing traffic on port 443. Had the question only be talking about web traffic and not the secure part of it, then it could have also be a inbound rule allowing traffic on port 80, because port 80 is the port for HTTP and the port 443 is a port for HTTPS. Now let's quickly jump to the question number 63. And this one says that you need to ensure that an Azure Active Directory Azure AD user named admin1 is assigned the required role to enable traffic analytics for Azure subscription. The solution given here is that you assign reader role at the subscription level to admin1. Does this meet the goal? Now, before answering this question, let's see the other two variations that you can expect in the Microsoft exam. So the other variations are presented in question number 64 and 65. The questions are exactly the same. However, the solution given is little different. In question number 64, it says you assign owner role at subscription level to admin 1. And in 65, it says you assign network contributor role at subscription level to admin 1. Now let's look each of the option one by one. Coming to the first one in 63, it says that the reader role at subscription level to admin 1. Now I am sure that even if you know little bit about the roles, you can already make out that with reader roles, you cannot do much. So with reader roles, you cannot enable admin 1 to enable the traffic. Thus, the correct answer for question number 63 is no. Then moving on, we have owner role. But in this case, if we stick to the fact that in Azure, we normally work with the principle of least privilege, then we do not want to give admin 1 an owner role just to enable traffic analytics. And that's why I have chosen a no for question number 64 as well. Then moving on, we have network contributor role. And for this question, the answer is yes, because it's network contributor role that lets you manage traffic, but it does not let you access it. So it correctly fits on the principle of least privilege as well. Moving on, our question number 66 says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1. You have 5 TB of data that you need to transfer to subscription 1. You plan to use an Azure import export job. What can you use as a destination of the imported data? And your options are Azure File Storage and Azure Cosmos DB database, or Azure Data Factory, or is it Azure SQL database? So this is the Microsoft documentation that talks more about Azure import and export system requirements. And if you will scroll a little on this page, you will reach to a section which talks more about the supported storage type. And in this one, you can see that whenever you have import or export, then you can see that there is Azure File Storage, which is supported whenever we have a import job. And that's the reason that why Azure File Storage is a correct answer for question number 66. Moving on with question number 67, and it says that you have an Azure subscription named S1 that contains resources as shown in the following table. Now you can see we have name of the resources here, and then we have type of the resources here. So starting on, we have storage 1, which is a Azure storage account. Then we have VNet 1, which is a virtual network. Moving on, we have VM1, which is a Azure virtual machine. And then we have VM1 managed, which is a managed disk for VM1. And then we have Vault 1, which is a recovery service vault for the site recovery of VM1. Moving ahead, the question says that you create a new Azure subscription named S2. You need to identify which resources can be moved to S2. Which resources should you identify? And your options are VM1, Storage 1, VNet 1, and VM1 Managed Only, or VM1 and VM1 Managed Only, or should you select VM1, Storage 1, VNet 1, VM1 Managed, and Vault 1? And the last option is Vault 1 Only. Now it's very important that you understand that moving a resource only moves it to new subscription or new resource group. It does not change the location of the resource. And when it comes to movement of resources, you can move literally all type of resources from one subscription to another subscription. The only catch is region, because let's say if the question asks you that they want to move resources from one region to another region, then in that case, things can differ. So assuming that the question is asking that movement of resources is within the same region, the correct answer for this question would be VM1, Storage 1, VNet 1, VM1 Managed, and Vault 1. So literally all the resources that are presented in the question can be moved from subscription 1 to subscription 2. But in case the question would have asked you that movement of resource is from one region to another region, then moving the recovery service vaults for Azure backup across region is not supported. So just keep that important tip in mind. Our question number 68 says that what does application gateway use to route requests to a web server? Your options are the IP address of the web server that is the target of the request, or the IP address and subnet of web server hosting the web application. The other option is the host name, port, path in the URL of the request, or the last one is the user's authentication information. And the correct answer for this question is the host name, port, and the path in the URL of the request. Quickly moving with our question number 69, and it says that your company's Azure subscription includes Azure virtual machines that run on Windows Server 2016. One of the virtual machine is backed up every day using Azure Backup Instant Restore. When the VM becomes infected with the data encrypted ransomware, you are required to restore the virtual machine. Which of the following actions should you take? And your options are: you should restore the VM after deleting the infected VM, or you should restore the VM to any virtual machine within the company's subscription. The third option is you should restore the VM to a new Azure VM, or the fourth one is you should restore the VM to an on-premise Windows device. There is one more variation of the same question that I'm going to present in the question number 70, which is the very next question. But for now, the correct answer for this question is that you should restore the virtual machine to a new Azure virtual machine. We are now at question number 70, which is the last question for our part 7 in our AZ-104 real exam question and answer exam series. And this question is similar to one that we saw in question number 69. However, this has much more details. So let's read out the question. It says that you have an Azure subscription named subscription 1, and the subscription 1 contains two Azure virtual machines named VM1 and VM2. Now VM1 and VM2 runs on Windows Server 2016, and VM1 is backed up daily by Azure Backup without using the Azure Backup agent. Moving on, it says that VM1 is affected by ransomware that encrypts data. You need to restore the latest backup of VM1. To which location can you restore the backup? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Now in the answer area, you are given two major activities. The first one is that you can perform a file recovery of VM1, and the second one is that you can restore VM2. So you have to choose one of these options that will justify this activity. Now the correct answer for the first activity is VM1 and VM2 only, and the second activity, the correct answer is VM1 or a new Azure virtual machine only. Before jumping to the Microsoft documentation, let me give you my justification why I have chosen these two options. So coming to the first activity, see, whenever we are talking about recovering of files, then you cannot restore files to a previous version or like a future version of the operating system. You have to restore files from virtual machine to the same server operating system, or you can say compatible client operating system. Therefore, VM1 and VM2 is the best answer since both the virtual machines are running on the Windows Server 2016. Now coming to the restore of virtual machine. So whenever restoring a virtual machine, you cannot replace existing virtual machine for an encrypted option or encrypted virtual machine. So this option is actually only supported for an unencrypted managed disk. Also, as I just mentioned before, that you can only restore files from a virtual machine to the same operating system or like a compatible operating system. Hence, the best option is to restore the virtual machine to the same VM1, or you can choose a new virtual machine only. So that's the reason behind choosing this option. Now let me give you some references of Microsoft documentation that you can read and detail understand how this restoration of virtual machines work. So this is the Microsoft documentation that talks how to restore Azure virtual machine data in Azure portal. There is a lot of details on this website. You can see we have restore options, and the options are create new virtual machine, restore disk, replace existing, and lot of other details are given on this page. So I would strongly recommend that you come to this page and understand this restoration process in detail. There is one more page that I would like to point out, is this one. And on this page, they have listed an easy way to bring back your virtual machine within in-place restore. So very good read from a virtual machine restoration process. I will leave all the links to all these documentation that I'm using in this video in the description box. I hope you enjoyed this set of 15 questions in part 7 as much as I did presenting it to you. Till we meet in our next part, part 8, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.